Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of the Seamless East Africa webinar series. So today we have a 60-minute panel discussion entitled Driving Digital Payments in the COVID-19 Era. We're lucky to be joined by 5 industry experts today who have kindly agreed to share their insights as we discuss accelerating digital payment strategies. So joining us as panelists, we have Aijaz Shalla, who is the Chief Technology Officer at I&M Bank, Njoroge, who is the co-CEO and co-founder of Cellulant, Jean-Claude Gaga, who is the CEO of RSwitch. Jean-Claude is here, he's just having a little technical difficulty, so he'll be available by audio only. And we have Kennedy Lahumbo, who is the Senior Business Development Leader for Merchant Sales and Acquiring at Visa. Moderating the session for us today is Ali Hussein, who is the CEO of Kipochi and the Chairman of the Kenya FinTech Association. So in a moment, I'd like to hand over to Ali so that we can all get started. Please can I ask all of our panelists to do that, to turn their microphones on. And whilst everyone's doing that, just a quick reminder to the audience that you can ask questions throughout the panel session and our panelists will do their best to answer them. So without further ado, Ali, I'd like to hand over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ali.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for accepting to come onto this webinar. I think introductions have already been done. What I would really like to do is sort of give an initial introduction into the kind of situation we have been facing in the last 3 to 4 months, and how things are evolving in the financial services sector and payments in particular. So I would like to first ask my panelists to quickly give a quick overview about themselves. And let me ask Aijaz to go first. Aijaz, over to you. 2-3 minutes intro. Aijaz, can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's okay. Ali, it broke in between. Yeah. You want me some? Hello.
Yeah, I wanted you to do a quick intro of yourself, and then we'll go to Njoroge and then Kennedy.
Sure. Thank you, Ali. So this is Aijaz Shalla. I'm CTO I&M Bank Limited. I come from a background of both finance and IT with more than 20 years exposure. I have worked in steel industry, I have worked in banking industry, and I have also worked in the power utilities also. I come across those 3 domains, having worked almost in every area for a good amount of time. So currently I'm CTO I&M Bank. So Ali, that's on my part.
Ken, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Name is Ken Njoroge, co-founder and CEO of Cellulant. I've worked in payments for over 12 years now. So Cellulant as a business been around for 16, but I've worked in the digital space all of my working career. We go way back with Ali, maybe 25 or so years ago. So very, very interesting times in one sense from a digital perspective, but very weird in terms of the different things that you have to balance to be able to cope with the situation and to prepare our customers and the business for the future. So glad to be engaging on these topics. Thank you.
Cheers, Ken. Kennedy, Luhongo, Visa.
think you just need to turn your microphone on there, Kennedy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Kennedy, it's okay.
Apologies for that.
We can hear you, Kennedy. Go on.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Ramadan Karim to our Muslim friends and colleagues. My name is Kennedy Luhombo. I work for Visa as a business development leader for merchant sales and acquiring. I have been in the payments industry, I think for now over 14 years, having worked in mobile money organizations and then crossing over into the scheme side of payments. Happy to be here. Hopefully we'll have a very engaging conversation and we get to share as much as we can, not just from us to you, but also from you to us. Thank you.
Kennedy, thank you so much. Last but not least, Jean-Claude, CEO of RSwitch from Rwanda. Jean-Claude, over to you.
Thank you, Ali. My name is Jean-Claude Gaga, and if you find Jean-Claude a bit difficult to pronounce, just call me Gaga. And I will hope you will remember me as Gaga, not Lady Gaga, but to some I jokingly say it is the load version of Gaga. I've been working in the payment space for the last over 10 years now. So I started off pioneering the first mobile wallet solutions in Rwanda with MTN Rwanda. And 5 years later, I joined the National Switch, which is RSwitch, where I'm currently working as the CEO. What we do basically is we are a processor. We sit in between merchants, issuers, and acquirers. Beyond that, we also issue our own debit card scheme, which is a proprietary local scheme. We also offer third-party services for the likes of Visa in Rwanda. And last but not least, our attention has mostly been around interoperability in the last couple of years, trying to bring together all payment ecosystems onto one shared platform to be able to allow for what the network effects bring as benefits. So I'll be happy to discuss more as we go on.
Jean-Claude, thank you very much for that. I think I'll go straight now into our conversations, and this first goes to Aijaz. Aijaz, obviously, you know, I don't need to start talking about the situation we are in now, COVID-19, you know, lockdowns, social distancing, being careful how you engage, how, you know, not touching, you know, stuff like that. So in these unprecedented times, Aijaz, how can economies actively leverage digital payments as a public health tool, and how zero stuff that INM Bank is already doing? How can organizations like yourselves help, you know, in ensuring that we are really taking care of?
So thank you, Ali. Hi, Ali. Your voice was in between breaking. No problem. I'll just move ahead. I could get a lot of it in between. So Ali, as we know, we have been going through tough times globally everywhere, right? But these tough times have also made us to learn something new. It has speeded up certain activities, especially our learning processes, our adoption process on the technology front, right? So I'm amazed to see how education, various organizations, healthcare, trade and transportation, how they are quickly adopting to the new norms that this pandemic has dictated, right? So the adoption of technology is really accelerated by this situation we are facing right now, right? Now, enabling and adopting digital payments will definitely go a long way. It will have a transformative impact on the economy. So we need to progress faster on adoption part of it. So when we say digital payments, it can happen us in two ways. It can help us in both during the pandemic to control and post-pandemic as well. So during the pandemic, you know, the new norms is social distancing. Though research, if you go through the research suggests that the virus, the bacteria, it doesn't persist long on the porous surfaces. But if you see the cash, the physical mode of payment, right? There are two negative impacts of that, the usage of that. One is you have to physically exchange the cash. You have to physically exchange. That means, again, a challenge to the social distancing norm. Then again, when you have a cash or you require a cash, you need to visit the bank, you need to visit the ATM, you need to visit the agent, either to deposit it or to withdraw it. So again, a challenge to the social distancing norm. Again, the challenge to stay at home norm. Okay, so the cash we see it's a hindrance there. So we need to adopt digital payments to flatten the curve, at least to what extent, to whatever extent we will be able to do it. If you go into recent US Federal Reserve, they simply increase the holding period for bills coming from Asia and Europe from 5 days to 10 days. Even China, banks in China, they have even gone to disinfectivize the cash and during the pandemic. Even the post-pandemic, we can have a lot of positive impact on the economy, right? Just imagine if you go fully cashless, if we adopt digital payments fully and we go cashless, and cashless economy means no, every penny that is in the economy that's counted for, it goes to the accounting financial systems, it's accounting for. Every penny which is in this economy adds value 24/7 to the economy, right? And it has a low impact. You have low tax evasions. The transaction costs go low while you go more digital, right? And the transaction conclusion time is faster. Just imagine you do a physical exchange of money and you do a digital transaction. Digital transaction is much faster, right? So banks and financial institutions all over are reaching the customers, reaching the public, advising them to go more digital, discouraging the cash usage. I think we as a society as a whole, we need to adopt it fast. And as I told you, it has both impact to control the pandemic during the pandemic, and post-pandemic, we'll have a lot of positive impact on the society economy, right? So that's my take on that area, on the digital payment side.
Aijaz, thank you very much. Ken, this goes to you. I think I would not be wrong or far-fetched to say that Cellulant has really been one of the earliest fintechs, probably even before the term fintech became a buzzword, you know, in the industry. And recently, you relaunched or sort of reconfigured your super app called
Sorry, all. I think Ali is just having a quick issue with his audio there. Just give him a couple of seconds. I think you're back now, Ali.
Ken, did you hear my questions?
No, Ali, I lost you when you were talking about reconfigure the super app and then you went quiet.
Okay, sorry about that. So I asked basically whether the regional payments ecosystem is ready for platforms like Things, and would the ecosystem, is the ecosystem available? Is it completely integrated as Gaga had earlier talked about? And what can we do to ensure that we move towards full integration and availability across the region? Over to you, Ken.
That I think that's a good question, Ali. Frankly speaking, I think the readiness of the ecosystem, different players, whether they are regulators, the telcos, the banks, the fintechs, and the customers, both consumers and businesses that consume digital payments. I think those have been ready for a while, frankly. They've been ready infrastructure-wise. I think the benefits of digital payments are known widely. People have seen them. I think what was lacking is basically just a catalyst to bring the critical mass of these connections together. And in a strange kind of way, the COVID crisis has given a kicker to just that push that sometimes you need. So for the first time, we're seeing that all of the different players are on the table, talking the same language with the same sense of urgency, and with a real sense of intent to actually digitize, right? And this has not just happened before. So that's I think a sort of fairly positive. I call these times digital unusual. But we've been ready for a while. The infrastructure has been there, the services, the products, the use cases, everything's been there for a while. We just needed a little bit of push, and I think the times have given that little push that's required.
Ken, thank you very much for that. I'll come back to you on something else within the same question, but let me move to Kennedy. Kennedy, Visa is, doesn't need any introduction, not just in Kenya, worldwide. And the issue about digital payments has become more and more important in the recent past and accelerated in the last 3 to 4 months. Everybody is now talking about the new normal. But something interesting I saw a few days, maybe about 2 weeks ago, and the question was posed on social media: who is the most influential person or thing that is making organizations and individuals move towards digital transformation much faster? And the questions was a multiple choice question: your CEO, your board, your CTO, or COVID-19. So the question really now is, to a global player like Visa, how can we accelerate? How can we further accelerate digital payments, expansion in digital payments? In a country like Kenya, even as we celebrate the likes of Cellulant, the likes of Pesapa, the likes of M-Pesa, 80% or more of transactions are still in cash. So as we celebrate this conversation, how do we move it further? How do we move it how do we accelerate it further post COVID era?
Thank you, Ali, for that question. So your initial survey, I'm sure COVID-19 won the ballot based on what is happening today.
Hands down, hands down.
Yeah, as expected, and I would add that, you know, today as we speak, consumer behavior is being shaped, most likely permanently. Psychologists say that it takes about 21 days to inculcate new behavior in a human being. The lockdowns that we're seeing across the world, the curfews, and the constant messaging on how you can protect yourself in this interesting times is really shaping consumer behavior. And for those organizations that may not be prioritizing the migration to the new normal, may find themselves irrelevant in the very near future. So our view is, you know, we have been on this journey of digitization for quite some time now. It's nothing new to Visa, but to Ken's point, it has given us that push. And by us, it means, I mean the whole ecosystem, everyone who's on the table, right? Everyone is speaking the same language. Everyone is pushing for the same agenda. You have governments implementing new strategies to move people away from cash, something that, you know, was much talked about, but really not much action was being taken from that angle. You have financial institutions actively pursuing ways to increase adoption. But I think what is most unusual, or actually something that is very unique, I mean, there have been efforts in all fronts to make sure that this is happening, but specifically because I am taking care of, on a day-to-day basis, the merchant side of the ecosystem, ensuring acceptance is being expanded. What we are beginning to see is more and more of merchants actually now demanding. I mean, a merchant, it was unheard of for a merchant to reject a sale because of the way a consumer wants to pay. Today, and specifically where cash is involved, today actually it's merchants who are saying, no, I don't want cash. You're going to have to pay me via digital payments, because even the merchant is now concerned about their own health, their employees' health as well. So this is happening today, and it is being accelerated left, right, and center. As I mentioned, we've been on this journey for some time, and maybe if I could just give a quick update on what is happening across the world, and also specifically in Kenya. We all remember the migration that happened when we were moving from magstripe to chip and pin. You know, from swiping to dipping your card. Today, we are talking contactless payments. And we talk about contactless, we're not just talking, you know, tapping your contactless enabled card on a contactless capable machine, but we're also talking about solutions like mobile money, USSD, QR, tap to phone solutions, etc. Right? So it's an expanded scope when you talk about contactless. But I think, you know, some of the trends that are important to point out here would be, you know, what is happening across the world to the point where this migration is now, you know, even dictating the manufacturing of point of sale terminals. We know, for example, that there are quite a number of economies across the world who are plus 90% of contactless transactions. Nearly all transactions are now happening in a contactless fashion. No one is dipping their card anymore. Now, these trends are happening. And in Kenya, we have been at the forefront of ensuring that this transition is also happening here locally. We are driving contactless with all our partners to make sure that that adoption is happening, because it's only a matter of time before someone comes from one of these countries who has never been exposed to dip, like it is today. There are some people who've never been exposed to swiping your card. So when someone tries to swipe your card, the first reaction is shock. What are you doing with my card, right? It's going to happen with inserting your card as well. So these are some of the things that we need to be very cognizant of. We also need to be very cognizant of the fact that the consumer is moving more and more online. So e-commerce is going to be extremely important as a channel for transacting, as people prefer to order in or do their shopping online. And we are supporting best way we can through partnerships that we are launching with various fintechs as well, to make sure that we are enabling consumers to transact wherever they are.
We're just having a little trouble hearing you there, Ali. No, can't seem to hear you yet.
Hello. Okay, I'm back. You guys can hear me now.
Yeah.
All right, Jean-Claude, this question goes to you. At the national switch in Rwanda, how are you stimulating mass uptake of digital financial solutions, and what are the existing processes that really need to be evaluated? And as you are talking about that, talk to us a little bit about eKYC processes, digital payment fees, and how we can bring everybody inclusive into the ecosystem.
All right. Sure. Thank you, Ali. I hope I'm clear enough. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to clear my webcam and it's still unable to come through. But straight to your question. Great. In regards to how to stimulate mass uptake of digital financial services, I think not necessarily for the case of Rwanda, but broadly speaking, this is something that needs an inclusive, needs to be inclusive. Solutions that need to be inclusive, that are tailored to local contexts. When you look across some of these solutions, the same solution that is working in Kenya may not necessarily have a similar or enjoy similar success when it comes to this side of the border, and vice versa. Something that is quite popular in Rwanda may not necessarily be one that is understood and the uptake the same in other countries. So, but beyond that, I think when you look at it broadly, number one, I always tend to say this, and I'm hoping, I'm not saying this because probably one of the regulators are in attendance, but the regulatory framework, I believe, for me, plays some of the major roles, especially when it is the type of framework that embraces innovation and adapts or responds to changes within the space of the digital space, globally. When it responds to these dynamics, but also trying to customize whatever dynamics in the global context to, again, the local realities. For me, I find that to be quite one of those that actually do help to push for mass adoption. Secondly, and it's something that actually I'm fond of talking about, is around financial literacy. Most of these mobile wallets or digital financial services, I think, are in their second decade of existence. We're probably going to see some of them turn 20 in the next 5 to 7 years. So this probably actually will explain why some of our grandparents, back in the villages, will trust having their money under the pillow, even if the house is, grass thatched, as opposed to reassuring them that their money is safe on a small piece of handset that sometimes most of them actually prefer using for FM radio. So I think this second point on the literacy is one that I find most service providers a bit ignoring, or simply not putting a lot of focus on while they're looking at mass products. We've seen cases, especially around this COVID era. We've been reading about stories mostly in Europe, specifically in the UK, where you find mostly the elderly population being quite frustrated because of the drop in ATM deployments, or even in some cases where there was a slight increase in fees for cash withdrawals. So these are some of the areas that indicate that some of these might be new, and so the literacy part needs to really be taken care of by the service providers. And small things such as PIN security. I remember during our days of the launch of mobile money in Rwanda, I will never forget this experience of one of our customers who called in live on a radio program, and actually mentioned the fact that their PIN was not working. And so when the reporter actually asked whether they understood or whether they were sure that they were using the right PIN, and this customer said, yeah, we all know our PINs in this area of town. So in an area probably of over 100,000 people, and this caller was saying, all of us has a similar PIN. We know it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are some of the things that actually we take for granted, but sometimes, may require more emphasis. Now, talking of KYC, or the onboarding, as you just mentioned in the question, I remember back in the days when opening a financial account, bank, or even before the wallets came in, we were required to physically move to the entity where we intend to open an account. You'd be asked as weird things as your parents' names, their date of birth, and a couple of photocopies, and then before you are given an account. Today, of course, make no mistake, they still do it. I believe these FSPs have found a smarter way to collect information about your parents and criminal records in a smarter way. But again, these are some of the things that we need to, again, pay more attention to when it comes to some of these services that we tend to give to the masses. And so, of course, with the benefit of improvement in technologies, automation of some of these services, centralizing most of the data, you find that a bank or any other financial institution is able to issue, for instance, a credit card without necessarily actually going and paying the cost of the plastic. So you just get to have it on your smartphone and get to move it wherever you do. I would also talk about probably points around, I think, third or fourth, around product awareness. So I think a better knowledge of these solutions also actually stimulates demand. So the more your consumers are aware of your product, the less you'll spend on your marketing and R&D budgets. And so it's very important that we do not stop pushing awareness in the first 6 months of a product launch and think that the rest can just go below the line and assume that the product will be understood across the market. So it's product awareness is one of those, again, that needs to really be taken care of. And I think the next one also that's almost related to this is also about pricing, product affordability. I'll give an example of this COVID season. In Rwanda, for instance, after a sit down between the regulator and all financial service providers, especially on the digital side, they all agreed to do away with transfer fees for P2P mostly and merchant payments. And we have seen a very exponential growth in the number of transactions because people do not have to think twice about whether they want to send money or make a payment. So you go to all shops, all the mom and pop shops within our small villages, and you find everybody is able to accept payments online because the other fear of how much it will cost for them to accept the payment or receive the money has been taken care of. The other one, obviously, I believe most CTOs' nightmares around this period especially has been around technology stability. With this sudden surge in demand, especially around contactless payments, it is quite important that FSPs and PSP platforms really remain resilient in ways that customers will find and be able to make payments or transfer whenever they want the service. So system reliability or system stability is one of those big incentives that service providers directly or indirectly need to offer as an incentive. And when customers are happy about availability, I believe that is a trade-off in terms of prices. So they will not actually think much about the price or any other matters as long as they're able to trust that whenever they want to use the service, it will be available. Last but not least, again, as I mentioned in the introduction, is around interoperability.
Let me stop you there, Jane. I'll come back to you.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you so much for that. I want to get back to Aijaz and something that sort of Jane Claude alluded to regarding financial inclusion. The issue now with the drive towards more and more cashless society. Is there a risk for financial exclusion? I mean, let me just give you some statistics.
Ali, we lost Ali.
I'm sorry, guys. 36% of Kenyans have smartphones, and I think across Africa that number is less and less. So we can talk about USSD. How many?
Ali, we're just having a little difficulty hearing you there.
Even able to use US.
Ali, we lost you.
So we at
Ali,
risk
we can't hear you.
Disenfranchising
Ali, we can't. Your connection's completely broken up there. Maybe try turning your webcam off.
We move inexorably towards a cashless, economy. And what can players?
Ali, hello. Ali, your voice was completely breaking.
Did you want me to repeat what I said?
Ali, maybe try it without
maybe
your webcam. Maybe
quickly, yeah. I could get a bit of it, so maybe if you want, I can just proceed with that. I got some part of it, initial part of it, then I lost the track. I can quickly go over the part which was clear to me. Yeah. Okay. You talked about financial exclusion, right? People getting financially excluded. See, there has been a lot of discussions in the past also that as we move towards the digital payments, it ends up, it creates a roadblock to those who are financially excluded, or it adds up the financial exclusion. But I don't think that is the reality. See, there are three concerns which basically emerge from it. One is those who are not right in the financial ambit, who are currently financially excluded. When we move more to the cashless economy, how to take care of those. And second is those who are technically naive. Okay, technically naive is those like uneducated people or people in the high age brackets, right? So the elderly people may not be too conversant with the mobile technology and the latest technologies. And third is that group of people who have an inherent opposition to the adoption of the digital payments. Maybe they have a resistance to change. But the things have changed early in the past also. When we talk, you just see the technology, how it's growing exponentially. But we also need to take some steps, okay, from the government perspective, from the regulators perspective, from the industry perspective. We need to take certain key steps, which I believe would do away with that apprehension that going cashless may impact those who are financially excluded, or may result in more financial exclusion, right? So number one, I would say we should think of at least those who are economically marginal section of the society. We should think of having lower transactional costs, right, on the digital payments. We should move towards, not during the pandemic only, post-pandemic, we should continue on that, especially on the low ticket size where the value of the money transacted is less. We can afford to have lower costs, right? And number two, I suppose we should also have relaxed KYC norms, not to be too strict on the KYC, especially again to the low income groups, okay, and people from the rural, far off areas, right? And I suppose number third, again, in many countries, in many economies, they usually go with a no frills accounts for the low income groups. When we say no frills accounts, that means they have a product for that group where you don't charge minimum balances, where you don't have a minimum maintenance costs, right, for those accounts. So you can have that sort of approach, okay? And third is, I suppose we should push towards more digital only banks, right? Why I'm pushing on digital only banks is, you see, they have a advantage of reduced operational costs. So their operational costs are 30% less than the normal banking channels, right? So when they have reduced operational costs, they can pass on those costs to accommodate the low cost, right? And in many countries, if you see the Europe, they are also doing through regulations. They are trying to push financial inclusions through regulations also. We also have to think on those lines, right? And lastly, I should say the right kind of infrastructure we need to build. the most impediment, I should say, on the infrastructure perspective is the digital identity. We need to move fast towards digital identity. That will help us bring more and more people into the ambit of financial inclusion. I think these are the steps I would rather suggest we should take, so that when we move cashless, that apprehension of certain part of the society, certain part of the people are excluded from the financial ambit, that is avoided.
Aijaz, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Ken, this is for you, and without necessarily going too much into the technical component, because I know sometimes you would delve quite a bit into the technology. What are the technologies that can assist businesses to thrive and accelerate their digital transformation when it comes to financial services? And here I'm really, let's try and focus a lot on the small and micro enterprises, because we know the big boys already have this sort of almost to the tune. How would we assist them, and what would be the technologies available to help these players navigate this digital transformation in financial services? Ken, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ali, for the question. I think this is really the million-dollar question of the day, right? Because you've got the market creating the pool for digital, mainly driven by consumers, of course, that are now sort of closed in, and you know, pretty much every part of the ecosystem that you do business with is closed in. So people have to digitize. I think the best way to think about it is to look at just different components of digitization. I think the first one for a small and micro business is to look at you know, basically your interface to your customers. You know, how do you actually reach your customers to advertise your product and services, to allow the customers to sample, to allow the customers to select, to iterate, go back and forth for a customer to choose and to pay, and then connect that to delivery and so on. You know, so this is generally sort of the, you know, in a quick nutshell, the bouquet of things that a business of any nature and a small micro have to think about. So by far, actually, when you think about it, a lot of the businesses, some of the small ones even, are very sophisticated, actually are doing that. They do that on Facebook, they do that on Instagram, they do that on WhatsApp, then they have mobile money payments and so on. So that whole thing is actually already happening. And I think, could it happen better and faster and neater and, you know, provide a graceful experience? I think so. So I would think that a lot of the solutions that are going to solve or make that process much faster, applications and platforms that integrate all these things. They integrate Instagram, WhatsApp, and so on, and they integrate payments, and they integrate connections to logistics and so on, so that it's just a smooth experience. You can see something on WhatsApp, you can click, you can ask questions, and you have a quick chat. You see a payment link, you click, and you open that up. You can pay that with your Visa, you can pay that with mobile money, you can pay that with directly from your mobile banking app. Once you pay, it connects to logistics. You choose your logistics ND or whatever it is, and that's it, and it works quite nicely. So I think the technologies that basically link to the consumers are the ones that are going to be successful are the ones that are going to integrate all these points where consumers already are, so that then you don't have this significant cost of acquiring consumers by building different channels. And then there's in the middle, which is, of course, if the link to consumers is highly automated, what it does, it increases the volume of transactions between the business and the consumer. So, you know, in the middle, you have to have some kind of automation to be able to keep track of all these interactions, to keep track of the payments, to keep track of the deliveries and so on, and service status and so on and so forth. And there you need some kind of automation. So it's safe to say there that the two sort of dominant pieces of technology that you think about is a mobile phone. Of course, everybody has one. If you're a micro and small, medium-sized business, it's safe to say actually that you have smartphones. So there you could say a lot of these sort of mini ERP systems that are sort of built on the phone and so on will be a significant part of technology to think about. And then, of course, the others are sort of cloud-based. So all these sort of software as a service applications that sit on the cloud for accounting, for tracking orders, and so on and so forth. You would see that as a significant piece of technology. And then the other big bucket of automation is how do you link to your suppliers and supply chain and so on. And you see actually the same kind of thing. So either cloud-hosted applications and mobile-based applications sort of providing those links. So in a very simple summary, I would summarize these three buckets of pieces of automation and the general technology direction one has to think about to find solutions in this very rapidly digitizing world.
Thank you so much for that. And I know that Cellulant has quite a bit of experience in the agricultural sector. So I guess you're speaking from from being there on the ground. I know we're running out of time, but this question is to Kennedy, and probably the best person to actually answer this. Interoperability, Kennedy. And when I talk about interoperability, I mean all the rails that make up the financial services sector. The old rails, as I call them, the old card systems, mobile, fintechs. How far? Give me a year, or give me years. How far are we from a complete interoperability, what I call interoperability nirvana, globally or regionally? How far are we? Where does Visa or where does Kennedy see this, going?
Thank you, Ali. It's a loaded question. However, I will say interoperability is actually happening as we speak. It all boils down to the merchant choice, and the consumer will choose whatever they are comfortable with. The question is, does the merchant accept what the consumer is comfortable with? As Visa, one of our core tenets is actually interoperability. The whole existence of Visa is to connect financial institutions. We enable interoperability across financial institutions so that if you have an I&M card, for example, you can use it at a KCB ATM, or you can use it at an Equity Bank point of sale machine, right? The connectivity that is happening between the two institutions is actually Visa rails that is enabling that. Now we're going beyond just financial institutions from a point of view of Ali, I cannot hear you. Are you saying something?
Sorry to interrupt you on that. So yeah. Those are the old systems, which really work well, but you can agree with me when I say that there is still quite a lot of work to be done. So when I'm talking about interoperability, I'm talking about what I call the new rails. Visa just acquired a fintech called Plate that connects banks, and fintechs and stuff like that. We're talking about mobile money and mobile money operating systems in Africa alone
can help me. How many mobile money operators do we have in Africa? If I want to send money to a mobile money wallet in Nigeria, can I do that? The answer is no. And that's where, things are. In Kenya,